A message to Americans about the country's future. As President Biden prepares to bid farewell to the White House, a new opinion piece in the Financial Times is describing his final curtain call as, quote, tragic. U.S. national editor for the Times, Ed Luce, contends the 46th president will be, quote, remembered chiefly for easing Trump's return. And Ed joins us now with more on this.
Ed, thank you so much. Some light reading from you this morning in the Financial Times. You say that Joe Biden defeated Donald Trump, stood up to Russia, enacted more reforms than Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, and bequeaths a robust economy. That made Biden a hero to America's left and beyond. Yet most of his achievements will now be erased. His legacy is Trump's return. After Biden, the deluge. He largely has himself to blame. The Greek tragic hero's defect is hubris, but it is the flawed hero's nobility that gives Biden a Greek ending. Virtue and hubris were both present in his personal tragedies. Explain, Ed.
The Greek tragedy is, of course, the hero brings his own downfall, is a flawed hero, and Biden was undoubtedly a very good president until he wasn't. And where I think he wasn't was in failing to step down. We had a number of journalists, but not enough. David Ignatius most prominently blowing the whistle on Biden's waning powers and on the fact that public opinion was indicating 2 years before the 2024 election that it was skeptical of whether he could serve another term. David Ignatius blew the whistle on that. Ezra Klein did. They were very much sort of censored and ostracized for saying what everybody in this town knew, which was that Biden was being shielded from unscripted encounters with the public, with the media, and was having a shorter and shorter day as president. In other words, that he wasn't fit to run again in 2024. And that didn't come through till the debate last June. It really left it too late for an open primary. It made it very difficult for Kamala Harris to launch a credible winning campaign against Donald Trump. And I think that, therefore, history, being brutal, is going to remember Biden not just as a bridge away from Trump in 2020, but as a bridge back to Trump in 2024. That's the tragedy of this. He was and has been a very good president. But history will remember him chiefly for being the bridge back to Trump. And I take absolutely no pleasure in saying that.
Let me press you on a few things here, Ed. You said that David Ignatius said something that everybody in Washington knew. I must say, there are many of us who know Joe Biden fairly well. I'm sitting next to one of them. I'm sure Mike Barnicle will have a question for you as well. Mike Barnicle, his chief complaints early on, quietly to me and others, was that they were not letting Joe Biden out enough. Mike talks to President Biden and has regularly throughout the year. I spent, as I've said before, 2.5, 3 hours with Joe Biden in the White House, all over the White House, talking at length and in depth about foreign policy matters, and he was as sharp as anybody else I've spoken to, and spoke actually like a man who's been doing this since he was 29 years old, and knew world leaders. Was he slower physically? Yes. Did he occasionally jumble a few words or a few names? Yes. But he corrected those as well. So after 2.5, 3 hours of it with him in the White House, going all over the White House, I did not see that. I spoke with French leaders after they had some pretty tough negotiations with him a couple of years ago. They left that meeting surprised how sharp he was and how they had listened to press reports saying that he had lost 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. They were surprised by the fact that actually he was pressing Macron on every single issue. I've spoken to leaders in the Middle East. I mean, I could go on and on about this. I heard also at the same time that he would be at fundraisers at night. And he would be wandering in his statements, even reading from a teleprompter. I don't know that it's quite so easy that everybody in Washington, D.C. thought the man was ill-equipped to be president of the United States. I know that's what they say on social media, but that certainly wasn't my experience. I would guess Mike Barnicle will tell you the same thing as well as Mika.
Maybe, but I mean, foreign leaders and foreign governments told me very different things to what you've just said. I think that people, who are getting older and have waning energy and vitality can go in and out. They can have strong moments, they can have weak moments. I think, though, that the key thing here was that the debate last June occurred several days after Biden had been traveling and wasn't considered to be shocking by a lot of the people I know, in various circles around the White House, that was the performance that reflected Biden's mental powers at the time. So I think the American public had it right.
I'm sorry. Wait. I've got to interrupt you again. And again, Ed, you and I are very good friends. I've got to stop you right there. I've had in-depth conversations with people in the White House before, during, and after who are still trying to figure out what happened that night. I just over the past, I think I said on the air, Jeff Zients said that he still will go out and his friends will be saying, why didn't you tell us? You think we knew that was going to happen? There's still people that are trying to figure out, and I said this to Susan Page a couple weeks ago, what exactly happened that night? Because anybody that's telling you that that is a reflection of how Joe Biden was operating inside of the White House regularly, that's something radically different than people that worked closest with him and people that I know that were around him for large parts of the day were saying.
Ed.
Yeah, Joe, I'm not actually making stuff up here. I talk to people who know Biden as well, and I can assure you I had many conversations over the previous couple of years about his declining energy, his declining memory, his increasingly short daily schedule to accommodate his declining memory and energy. So, I'm not putting this out of thin air. We're not saying
that. Ed, let me interrupt again. We're gonna keep you here and continue this conversation after a quick break, because I think one of the answers is that two things can be true at the same time. But let's take a quick break and we'll be back at the top of the hour.
Safe Flight Repair. Safe Flight Repair.